Hey, what's up, card fighters? I'm here finally with a commentated match video. It took me a while to figure out the logistics slash time, because it does take a little bit more time to set a video like this up. But I did want to go over my gameplay with GRAMGRACE that I took to Versus Games at the Oviedo Mall. Go ahead and check them out. It's a really nice card shop. And yeah, this is round three, I believe. I'm fighting against BAROMAGNES, which you guys know how I feel about BAROMAGNES. So I pretty much know, like, the ins and outs of this deck. The deck didn't really change too much, like the set 7 support, and didn't really get any support in set 8. So there's really no surprises for me here, at least in my personal opinion. I do know it is slightly in my opponent's favor because the way my Graham Grace works is you want to play with a full board because Graham Grace gives Persona Right to the front row and the back row. So we're just shuffling up, getting the hand started. I don't remember who won the die roll here. I guess we're gonna figure it out right now. I think we got the same number. That was like what, a 7? And that was a 9, so I guess I go first. So for Graham Grace, I am using the I ditched a grade 1 maple, which is a really good ditch. I am using the Blaster Dark Ride line, the complete Blaster Dark Ride line, just because Graham Grace does require quite a bit of soul. At least with the cards that I'm playing, it does require quite a bit of soul in certain scenarios. So instead of just using the Wingull and Marin, I'm just opting for the full Blaster Dark Ride line, which is actually quite interesting with certain cards that I do play in the deck. You sometimes get like some pretty cool top calls, and you're able to activate certain abilities depending if your opponent damage denied you or not. Which, if I'm going second, I always do try to be the aggressor because this deck does want to play aggressively. Oh man, that was a crit and a heal. That was crazy. This is still just a 15 though, because my opponent did get a defensive damage trigger, but that does put me in more or less the driver's seat in being the aggressor in the first game. Surprisingly, my opponent gave me damage, which I didn't expect, to be honest. I didn't expect my opponent to give me damage. I expected him to just swing at rear guard, so I wouldn't have anything to do on my turn. But you also have to understand it from the Barrel Magnus player's perspective that to they do have to try and kill me, and they do have to try and kill me fast, just because the deck doesn't really have like the hand capabilities to get into a grind game scenario, at least from my experience of the deck. Proccing Graham Grace's ability here, I do decide to call a trigger as a back row attacker just because I really don't have any better targets. Swing here with Graham Grace, I don't get anything. These columns do die due to a defensive trigger, but I'm still, trying to put on that aggression with like the little resources I do have or am willing to expend in this scenario, because I do know that these cards that I commit are going to go away on my opponent's next turn if they do get the 15 in soul. So they're going to go ahead and ride up, put opponent in soul. They draw into the over trigger. They have actually a really pretty defensive hand. So they're going to activate the Amadadine. Right now, I believe they have 7 or 6 cards in soul. So soul charge 2. That column's most likely not getting blocked. So I don't think I even keep track of it. So I'm really vigilant here on my opponent and how much soul they're soul charging and what exactly they're soul charging, because like I said, I do play this deck, and I'm just trying to make sure, or at least not trying to make sure, but seeing if they can actually get to the 15 soul and make sure that they do have 15 when they try and activate Barrow Magnus's full effect. So they're just comboing off with the pony. That was 2 heal triggers, which is actually like really good for me since I did aggress my opponent to 4 damage. That swirler just keeps on getting bigger. Again, that column is not getting guarded, so it really doesn't matter in this scenario. They're going to activate another pony, and I believe this is the one that gets them to exactly 15, if I'm not mistaken. but I do believe they. Oh no, they called that guy the Lilac Rusher. They call Lilac Rusher as an attack, which is actually really good, which forces me to basically take these first 2 points of damage like without any contestation or any contesting. Which I'm trying to see if I can guard that. And am I able to guard that attack, or do I try to guard that attack? I think I thought about PGing it, but I do believe I ultimately take it here. Oh no. Oh, 20k front. Oh wow. Oh, so that was really a really good heads up play on my part because it did allow me to stay at lower damage, and utilize that interceptor, which I would have lost out on that 5k shield. And I guarded with the maple, which means if I do end up persona rating on my next turn, I don't recall if I do, just because this was quite a while ago. But if I do end up persona rating on my next turn, that's just 2 free units to board, which my deck generally wants to play with a full board, which is really good for me in that scenario. I do believe I chanced the 2 to pass here, just to keep up on card economy. That column doesn't hit because my Vanguard's 23, but they're just trying to get the counter charge. And this is 28 to my 23, which I do believe I take this hit. My go. Do I have the persona ride? I do, I do. So you're gonna see me get those maples out right now, which is just really good in this matchup. I did thought about cutting the grade 1 maple just because it only works if you persona ride, but like in a deck that just wants to play with the full board, it's too good in my opinion. I feel like you have to run at least both of them at one. Well, in this type of deck. I call out a Gird, which his effect is when he attacks while boosted, he gets 5k. So that's a 28k column by itself, plus the double persona ride, that's 48 by itself. And I wasn't able to commit a booster for the maple, which was kind of sad, but I didn't want to just drop a trigger because I didn't believe I could kill them here. Which actually I don't kill. I'm not supposed to kill them here, technically, because technically my opponent did have enough to guard, but I believe this is where they miscalculate. Yeah, I believe they miscalculated here because this was 35. Yeah, this is 35, and they have 3 15k shields in hand. No, they have 3 5k shields in hand, which would have put them to 38, and then they have a PG, which, granted, if I wanted to play around the PG, I could have swung with my guide first, which was a 58k column. And I was telling my opponent right there that they did have enough to guard, but they would have started their turn on 0 cards, which wouldn't have been the end of the world just because they already had 15 in soul, so they would have attacked with the Amadadine and then attacked with the Barrow. But I do believe I had built up quite a defensive hand myself because I didn't use any perfect guards on that turn, and I do believe I had at least the Blitz Order PG and quite a bit of shield in hand. But we're going on to game 2 now. Sped this up for you guys just so that we're not too much just watching these people shuffle, or these people, I mean myself and my opponent. So my opponent does choose to go first here, which makes sense. They're the combo deck. They just want to get to 15 as quickly as possible and beat my face in on turn 3 as quickly as possible. Which, again, my deck, at least this version of the deck for GRAMGRACE, doesn't mind going first or second, just because I'm just able to, more often than not, like, build up that board of at least 2 attackers in the early game. Or at least I try to. That's how I've been playing the deck lately, or playtesting the deck. There will be a deck profile soon, so don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for that. Alright, we're just about done shuffling up here. I do take it upon myself to shuffle and then cut my opponent's deck. When I see my opponent, they shuffle, but I see them that they shuffle incorrectly, so they're not really randomizing their cards. And I know it's technically helping them, but it's just like some weird thing with me that I'm like, you didn't do it right, so like I have to see it be done right. But I do think about committing a grade 1 here, but I choose not to, just in case my opponent does decide to damage or die me. because I do believe my hand isn't that sexy. I already do know what I'm gonna discard. Oh, they decided to rush me. I remember this too. They rushed me, which I didn't expect. If I knew they were gonna try and rush me, I should have actually committed that card. I do believe it was a tiger, a menacing tiger, but I decided to save it. So we're gonna drop the maple. Actually, no, we're not gonna drop the maple. We're gonna drop the menacing tiger here. Yeah, yeah, because I was holding on that for discard for next turn. Yeah, we're gonna drop the menacing tiger here, and we're gonna activate menacing tiger first before our ride line. Then we're gonna soul blast one to give 5k to my Vanguard, and then top call. Top call's an interceptor, which is actually very clutch in this situation. And we're gonna pop the countercharger, and then we're gonna call down the maple. So this is gonna be 15 twin drive, which does warrant a no guard, and I do get a heal, and I do get a crit. That's the second time I did that to my opponent in this round, which is actually quite crazy because it does push them to 5. They do get a heal though, but once again, I've pushed them to 4 on my turn 2, just off of Blaster Dark's Twin Drive. We see my opponent here procking off double pony. I do believe they get to 10 soul this turn, not 15. That's why they rushed me in the first place, cause they didn't no, they don't even get to 10 soul. They have like 7 soul or something. But they didn't they just didn't have, I guess they didn't have the combo pieces. Or I see them in hand, but I guess it wasn't enough? Question mark. Deciding what to discard. Discard a guide since I already have a front row. And automatically we activate GRAMGRACE's effect, call one to the back row attacker, draw one, and then that card, which I'm convinced it's just GRAMGRACE support. It's a generic grade 2 that when it's called by a card ability, you can counterblast one, it gets 5k and you get to draw a card. So that's my ideal target as a back row attacker, because it becomes 25k with GRAMGRACE's skill. And then push to soul, draw a card. So this is actually like not too bad for me personally, because even if my opponent does get to 15, I can most likely just get rid of the interceptors, which they're proccing another pony. So yeah, I think they do get to 15 this turn, but I am just gonna have to intercept away the maple and intercept away the leftover guide I have on board. Oh no, I think they only got to 10. That's crazy. I do chance the over trigger here because I do want to save my perfect guards for later in the match when my opponent does eventually get to, their full-fledged combo. Do I make the decision to go to 5 here to block my opponent from healing? Yes, I do. So I could have arguably guarded that attack with 1 or 2 cards, but I think I made the conscious decision of heal blocking my opponent while realizing I need 2 counterblasts to make this play. Because GRAMGRACE is a counterblast, and then the Hammer Girl is also a counterblast. And then we often do this in the GRAMGRACE deck, at least in this version of the deck. We'll hard call the Menacing Tiger just to give 5k to GRAMGRACE, which is really good because GRAMGRACE is normally only swinging 13 by itself, 23 with Persona Ride. This makes it 18 or 28, which if they're not running front triggers, that becomes a 2k that becomes a 2-card guard, as we see here. We got a Persona Ride and a Perfect Guard, which is very clutch. That's just like really key setup for our next turn. This is 18. This is the weakest column this turn. We didn't really do anything magical here. And because of that, looks like we're going to expend a little bit of my opponent's hand here. It seems quite fragile. Well, they have the perfect guard, but it does seem quite fragile, and they're going to have to guard with some pieces here, it looks like. Just to try and save that 15. Or did they do the 15 here? Yeah. I would probably guard with the... Oh no, I attacked the rear guard. Oh, I made the decision to attack the rear guard because I knew attacking the Vanguard was only a 5k shield. So I decided to get rid of the attacker, which is actually, was made a lot of sense in this scenario because this would have been I was at 5 and these two attackers now. Most definitely my opponent does have the 15 soul. This would have been a way heftier turn if I didn't make the conscious effort to attack the rear guard. Then this is 33. Get rid of that interceptor. And then quite obviously my opponent does have the 15 here after like 3 turns of bricking. So I do put both. Yeah, I had two grade 1s in the back row, so I do put those into soul. Calls out 2 lilac rushers. I believe I 2'd past the Vanguard because of how big the lilac rushers were, because I only had the Blitz Order PG in hand. So I 2'd past the Vanguard. I have no choice but to 2'd past the Vanguard here and just PG the bigger lilac rusher, because I had 2 PGs in hand and I had like 3 15k shields and a 20 or 2 20s and a 15 or something like that. And then I'm correcting my opponent's math here. They added like an extra 20k to the lilac rushes. Or an extra 10k. No, it was an extra 20k. So they miscounted the lilac rushers. Which they're swinging for... They're plus 60, so they're swinging for 62, 65, if I'm not mistaken. So first check, it's a crit. He gives crit to one of the lilacs and power to Vanguard, which is fair to be honest, but doesn't check another trigger. So swings with the weaker one first, which I would have just swung with the more powerful one to force out the PG, because this is just perfect scenario for me. I dumped those 3 cards, and then I just used the order PG to get rid of it. Persona Ride. Then we just get to call out our maples, and then just to take advantage of the Persona Ride to the back row from GRAMGRACE's ability, I do believe in this situation I just called out 2 triggers, realizing that this is most likely my final turn if I didn't get rid of those lilac rushers, but I chose to go for face here. First, second, we didn't get anything. We swing 35. This is the weakest attack this turn, I believe. Oh no, these are all like pretty weak, to be honest. 35 again. And our opponent does have to bet on a heal or OT here. The OT was still in deck, and there was at least 1 heal still in deck. So they PG this one, and then they chose to take the other one, which their deck was very low. The last 2 cards was actually exactly OT and heal, which I was expecting them to check the OT here, and then draw, and then I pass turn, and then they die. But I didn't expect them to heal. I expected them to check the OT as a 6 damage. But that's basically the match, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We do have our playmats for sale. Don't forget to either email me directly or DM me on Facebook. We accept Cash App and PayPal. We're selling the mats right now for like $25 a piece, plus shipping and handling, depending on where you stay. If it's outside the US, obviously shipping is going to be more. But yeah, I really do want to do more commentary videos like this in the future, so please let me know down below how I did. Bye, guys.